The smell of stale coffee and desperation usually hangs heavy in a loan office, but not at Vanguard Private Bank. Here, the air smelled of white tea and money. Serious money. I sat in the smallest cubicle in the back corner, adjusting the sleeves of a shirt that was 2 sizes too big. I had borrowed it from the intern room. To anyone walking in, I looked like a junior associate drowning in paperwork. A nobody. A paper pusher. That was the point. I was conducting a blind audit of the branch's customer service. Then I heard the click-clack of heels on the marble floor. A sound I knew better than my own heartbeat. "I can't believe we have to wait," a woman's voice hissed. "Do they know who you are, Brad?" "Relax, babe," a deep, booming voice replied. "They're just intimidated. When you have this kind of capital, banks get nervous. They need to prepare the red carpet." I lowered the file I was pretending to read. Carla walked in. She looked expensive. Her hair was lighter than when she left me 6 months ago. Her bag was Chanel. Her shoes were Louboutin. And holding her hand was a man who looked like he had been built in a gym and dressed by a billboard. Brad. The crypto visionary. The man she left me for because I was too safe and financially conservative. They approached the front desk. The receptionist, Sarah, looked flustered. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling," Sarah said. "The senior loan officer is currently in a meeting. If you'd like to wait in the lounge." "Wait." Brad slammed a heavy gold ring onto the counter. "I don't wait. I'm here to secure financing for the Malibu estate. 5 million. Cash injection. Do you know how much commission your bank is going to make on my portfolio?" "I understand, sir," Sarah stammered. "But everyone is booked. Unless..." Sarah's eyes darted to the back of the room. To my cubicle. She looked terrified. She knew who I was. I gave her a subtle nod. "Send them back." "Well," Sarah said, swallowing hard. "We do have a junior associate available. He handles preliminary data entry. He can start your application." Carla scoffed. "A junior associate? For a VIP client?" "It's fine, babe," Brad said, adjusting his lapels. "Let's just get the paperwork out of the way. I'll intimidate the kid, get the approval, and we'll be at Nobu by noon." They walked toward my cubicle. I kept my head down until they were standing right in front of my desk. "Hey, buddy," Brad said, snapping his fingers. "Eyes up. We're in a rush." I slowly looked up. Carla's jaw didn't drop. It unhinged. The color drained from her face so fast she looked like a wax figure. "David?" she whispered. I leaned back in the cheap office chair, forcing a weak smile. "Hello, Carla?" Brad looked between us, confused. "You know this guy?" He's my ex-husband," Carla said, her voice dripping with sudden embarrassment. She looked at my ill-fitting shirt, the stack of papers, the tiny desk. A look of pure pity washed over her face, followed immediately by triumph. "Oh my God," she laughed, a cruel, sharp sound. "David, I heard you were struggling after the divorce, but this? You're a junior clerk? At your age?" "It pays the bills," I said quietly. Brad burst out laughing. He slapped me on the shoulder hard. "No hard feelings, pal. Someone has to file the papers, right? Not everyone is cut out for the big leagues." He pulled out a chair and sat down, not waiting for an invitation. Carla sat next to him, smoothing her skirt, looking at me with disgust. "This is actually perfect," Carla said. "I want you to see this, David. I want you to see what real ambition looks like. Brad is buying the Cliffside estate. The one you said we could never afford. The one listed for 6 million? I asked. 6.5, Brad corrected, putting his feet up on my desk. He kicked a stack of files over. He didn't apologize. I negotiated the seller down. "I'm a closer, Dave. That's what Carla needs. A closer. Not a, what are you? A scrivener?" "I process applications," I said, picking up the fallen files. "Great. Process this." Brad threw a thick leather portfolio onto the desk. "We need a bridge loan. 5 million. I have assets tied up in offshore accounts, waiting for the market to correct. I just need liquidity for the down payment and renovations. I opened the portfolio. I scanned the documents. Tax returns from 3 years ago. Projected earnings statements. Screenshots of a crypto wallet. It wasn't a financial portfolio. It was a fairy tale written in Excel. These are interesting figures, I said. But the bank requires verified liquid assets for a loan of this size. Your credit score is... I tapped the keyboard, pretending to look it up. I didn't need to. I had flagged Brad's name in the system weeks ago when he first applied online. 620? Brad's face turned red. That's a mistake. Identity theft. My team is fixing it. Look at the crypto holdings. That's worth 10 million right there. Crypto is volatile, Brad, I said calmly. And Carla, your name is on the application as a co-signer? Of course it is, Carla snapped. We're partners. Unlike us. I trust him. Partners, I repeated. So you're putting up your grandmother's inheritance as collateral? The lake house? Carla froze. How did you know about that? I remember the address, I said. It's the only asset you have left after the divorce settlement. And it's more than you'll ever have. She shouted, standing up. People in the lobby turned to look. God, you're pathetic. You're trying to sabotage us because you're jealous. You're sitting in this tiny box, wearing a shirt that looks like a tent, trying to block a deal that makes you look like a failure. I'm just following protocol, I said. Protocol? Brad stood up too, towering over me. Here's the protocol, pencilneck. You're going to stamp that paper approved, or I'm going to call your boss. I know the branch manager. I played golf with him once. If I make that call, you'll be cleaning toilets by the afternoon. I looked at Brad. I looked at the fake Rolex on his wrist. The ticking hand gave it away. Real Rolexes sweep, they don't tick. You played golf with the branch manager? I asked. Yeah. Great guy. He loves me. Interesting, I said. Because the branch manager is a woman. Mrs. Holloway. Brad blinked. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. And I continued, standing up slowly. She doesn't play golf. She plays tennis. The glass door to the private executive office at the back of the bank opened. Mrs. Holloway walked out. She was a formidable woman in a sharp gray suit. She didn't look at Brad. She didn't look at Carla. She walked straight toward my cubicle with a look of absolute panic on her face. Carla smirked. Oh, here we go. You're in trouble now, David. Brad, tell her. Brad puffed out his chest. Excuse me. Ma'am. Your employee here is being obstructionist. I am a VIP client, and this clerk is refusing to process my loan. Mrs. Holloway stopped. She looked at Brad with confusion. Then she looked at me. She didn't scold me. She didn't fire me. She bowed. It was a slight bow, professional but deeply deferential. Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Holloway said, her voice trembling slightly. I apologize for the wait. The board of directors is on the secure line in your office. They are waiting for your vote on the acquisition. The silence in the cubicle was deafening. Carla looked at Mrs. Holloway. Then she looked at me. Mr. Sterling? She whispered. Why did she call you Sterling? I unbuttoned the oversized shirt, revealing the bespoke Italian suit vest underneath. I took off the fake glasses I wore for the disguise. Because that's the name on the building, Carla, I said. I pointed to the wall behind the reception desk. The bronze letters gleamed under the spotlight. Sterling & Co. Private Banking. You kept my last name after the divorce, I said cold. But you forgot I changed mine back to my grandfather's when I bought this bank. Carla stared at the bronze letters on the wall, then back at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was like watching a computer reboot after a critical system failure. Sterling? She choked out. But your grandfather was a mechanic. He didn't own a bank. He didn't, I said, stepping out of the cubicle and buttoning my vest. He owned a moral compass. Something you and I lost track of. I bought the bank to find mine again. You just found Brad. Brad, to his credit, was too stupid to quit while he was behind. He stood up, puffing out his chest, trying to physically dominate the space even though the power dynamic had shifted tectonically. All right, look, Brad said, forcing a laugh that sounded like sandpaper on glass. Nice reveal, Dave. Very dramatic. So you bought a regional bank. Good for you. That doesn't change the fact that I'm a high net worth individual, and you're legally obligated to service my loan. Discrimination is a serious lawsuit, buddy. Mrs. Holloway stepped forward, her face cold as stone. Mr. Sterling is not legally obligated to do anything but protect this institution from fraud. And if you raise your voice at the chairman again, I will have security remove you. It's fine, Mrs. Holloway, I said, gesturing to the glass-walled executive suite at the back, the one Brad had tried to use to intimidate me earlier. Let's take this to my office. The real one. I think Brad wants to discuss his assets. I walked toward the office. I didn't look back to see if they were following. I knew they would. Greed and fear are powerful motivators, and they were feeling both. I sat behind the massive oak desk. It was clean, minimalist. No clutter. Just a single terminal and a phone. Brad and Carla sat in the guest chairs. They looked smaller now. The leather chairs were designed that way, low centers of gravity to make the person across the desk feel subordinate. A psychological trick I had kept from the previous owner. So I said, typing a command into the secure terminal. The large screen on the wall flickered to life. Let's look at this portfolio, Brad. You said you have 10 million in crypto? Easily, Brad said, loosening his tie. He was sweating now. A bead of perspiration rolled down his temple. It's in a cold wallet. Untraceable by traditional banking systems. That's why I need the bridge loan. To liquidize without triggering a tax event. Right, I said. The tax event. I hit a key. The screen filled with data. Not bank statements, but a deep web forensic analysis report. This is Onyx Analytics, I explained. It's a proprietary software I developed before I bought the bank. It tracks digital footprints across the blockchain. I pointed to the screen. I ran your name and your known wallet addresses while you were bragging about your golf game. Do you know what I found? The screen showed a large red 0. I found a lot of activity, I said. But no value. You don't hold Bitcoin, Brad. You hold Luna Dust and SafeRocket. 2 coins that crashed to zero 6 months ago. Carla turned to Brad. What? You told me you sold before the crash? You showed me the screenshot. I did. Brad stammered, his eyes darting around the room. The blockchain is lagging. Dave's system is outdated. He doesn't understand Web 3. I understand math, I said. And the math says your net worth is negative $400,000. You have outstanding judgments in Nevada and Florida for contractor fraud. Carla gasped, pulling her hand away from his leg. Fraud? He flips houses, Carla, I said, looking at my ex-wife with a mixture of pity and disgust. Or rather, he takes deposits from investors to flip houses, guts them, and then vanishes before the renovation is done. That's how he paid for the Maserati rental. It's a lease, Brad shouted. It's a rental, I corrected. From Exotic Daily. $800 a day. And it's 2 days overdue. Brad slumped back in his chair. The bluster was gone. He looked like a deflated balloon in a cheap suit. But I wasn't done. The real tragedy wasn't Brad's lies. It was Carla's signature. This brings us to the loan application, I said, picking up the paper they had just filled out. Tear it up, Carla said quickly, her voice high and panicked. Just tear it up, David. We're leaving. Brad, get up. We're done. I can't tear it up, Carla, I said softly. Because you signed the collateral agreement. So? We didn't get the money. You don't understand banking, I said. You signed a pledge of assets. To expedite the VIP process Brad demanded, you authorized an immediate lien on the property listed to cover the application fees and the credit check costs. plus a penalty clause for fraudulent submission. I tapped the paper. You put your grandmother's lake house up as security. And because Brad here just committed federal bank fraud by submitting falsified documents. I paused. The air conditioning hummed in the silence. The bank is legally required to freeze all associated assets pending a federal investigation. Carla screamed. It wasn't a word. It was just a sound of pure, unadulterated horror. She grabbed the desk, her nails scratching the wood. My grandmother lives there, she shrieked. David, she's 80 years old. You can't freeze her house. It's all she has. I didn't do it, Carla, I said. You did. When you signed your name next to a con artist because you wanted a faster table at Nobu. Carla turned on Brad. She started hitting him. Slapping his chest, his face, screaming incoherently. You liar! You told me it was safe. You told me you were rich. Brad pushed her away, hard. She fell back into the chair. Shut up, you gold-digging witch! Brad yelled, his facade completely gone. He looked at me, his eyes wild. Look, Dave. Mr. Sterling. I'm the victim here too. She pushed me. She said her ex-husband was a loser, and she needed a real man to buy her things. I was just trying to keep up. Don't you dare blame me. Carla sobbed. I left a good man for you. You left a bank owner for a grifter, I corrected. I pressed the intercom button on my desk. Mrs. Halloway? Yes, Mr. Sterling? Lock the front doors, I said. And call the FBI Financial Crimes Division. Tell Agent Miller I have the crypto king he's been looking for. Brad stood up, knocking his chair over. FBI? No. No way. I'm walking out of here. He turned toward the glass door. Brad, I said calmly. He stopped, hand on the handle. The doors are maglocked, I said. Mrs. Halloway triggered the silent alarm when you threatened me in the cubicle. The police are already in the lobby. You can see the flashing lights through the window if you look. Brad looked. Blue and red lights were reflecting off the polished marble of the bank foyer. He turned back to me, tears streaming down his face. Dave. Please. I can fix this. I have a stash. In the Caymans. I can pay you off. You just tried to bribe a federal bank officer, I said, picking up a pen and making a note. That's another 5 years on your sentence. I looked at Carla. She was curled into a ball in the leather chair, weeping into her Chanel bag. And you, Carla, I said? You're an accessory. She looked up, mascara running down her face like war paint. No. David, I didn't know. I'm your wife. Well, your ex-wife. You can't let them arrest me. I can't stop them, I said. But I can offer you a choice. I opened a drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. What is that? She whispered. A quitclaim deed, I said. For the lake house. You want me to sign the house over to you? She asked, horrified. I want you to sign it over to the bank, I said. If you surrender the asset voluntarily to cover the fraud penalty, I might be able to convince the DA that you were a victim of coercion, not a co-conspirator. You lose the house. But you keep your freedom. But my grandmother. I'll handle your grandmother, I said. She likes me. Unlike you. I slid the paper across the desk. Sign it, Carla. Or leave in handcuffs with your boyfriend. Carla's hand shook so violently that the tip of the pen rattled against the paper. She looked at the flashing blue lights reflecting off the glass walls of my office, then at Brad, who was currently trying to shove a hard drive down his pants to hide evidence. I can't believe this, she sobbed. I'm signing away my inheritance. You already lost it, Carla, I said, my voice devoid of sympathy. You lost it the minute you tried to use it to fund a criminal enterprise. This is just damage control. Do it, Carla. Brad yelled, panic cracking his voice. Sign the paper. Maybe they'll go easy on me if the bank gets the collateral. You shut up. She screamed at him. This is your fault. She pressed the pen to the paper. She signed. It was a messy, jagged scrawl, but it was legally binding. I snatched the document away the second the ink touched the page. Done, I said. The bank accepts the voluntary surrender of the asset in lieu of prosecution for Ms. Bennett. I pressed the intercom. Mrs. Holloway, send them in. The glass doors slid open. Agent Miller from the FBI walked in, followed by 2 uniformed officers. They didn't even look at Carla. They went straight for Brad. Bradley C. Evans, Agent Miller said, flashing a badge. You are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and money laundering. Brad didn't fight. He collapsed. He fell to his knees, sobbing like a child who had dropped his ice cream. It wasn't me, Brad wailed as they cuffed him. I'm just a visionary. The market is volatile. I was going to pay it back. Save it for the judge, Miller said, hauling him up. As they dragged Brad out, he turned to look at Carla. You promised me liquidity. You said your ex was a pushover. You ruined me. Carla didn't answer. She just stared at the empty chair where her future had just been sitting. The office went quiet again. The flashing lights outside faded as the squad car pulled away. Carla looked up at me. Her eyes were swollen, her makeup destroyed. She looked like a ghost of the arrogant woman who had walked in 30 minutes ago. So, she whispered, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. You have the house. You won. You finally got revenge for me leaving you. Revenge? I asked, picking up the deed she had just signed. Yes. You hated that I loved my grandmother more than you. And now you're going to evict her. You're going to kick an 80-year-old woman onto the street just to hurt me. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You really don't know me at all, do you? I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a stamp. Property of Sterling Trust. I stamped the deed. I'm not evicting her, Carla. I'm saving her. What? If I hadn't forced you to sign this quitclaim, the FBI would have seized the house as proceeds of an attempted fraud, I explained. It would have been auctioned off by the government in 6 months. Your grandmother would have been homeless. I held up the stamped document. By transferring the title to the bank's trust, I can issue a lifetime lease. Rent-free. Your grandmother stays in that house until the day she dies. I pay the property taxes. I pay the maintenance. Carla's mouth fell open. You're letting her stay? Yes, I said. But there is one condition in the lease. What? No unauthorized guests, I said. Specifically, guests who have a history of financial fraud or bad credit. I leaned forward. That means you can't live there, Carla. You can't crash on her couch. You can't mooch off her pension. She is protected from the bank, and she is protected from you. Carla stood up, her face flushing red with a mix of shame and anger. Where am I supposed to go? I gave up my apartment to move in with Brad. His house is going to be seized. I have no money, David. I believe there is a bus stop on 4th Street, I said, checking my watch. If you hurry, you can catch the 5:15 to the shelter downtown. I'm not taking a bus, she shrieked. I'm wearing Louboutins. Then I suggest you start walking, I said. Before the blisters set in. I pointed to the door. Get out of my bank. She stared at me for one last second, waiting for the safety net to appear. Waiting for the boring David to save her. But David didn't work here anymore. Mr. Sterling did. She turned and ran. I watched her heels click-clack across the marble floor, slower this time, lacking the rhythm of arrogance she had walked in with. The sunset over Lake Havasu was painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. It was quiet here. The only sound was the gentle lapping of water against the dock. I sat in a rocking chair on the porch, holding a glass of lemonade. Here you go, David, a sweet voice said. Carla's grandmother, Martha, shuffled out of the screen door, handing me a plate of cookies. She looked healthy. Happy. She didn't know the details of what had happened, only that David had sorted out the paperwork, and that she was safe. Thank you, Martha, I said. Have you heard from her? Martha asked, sitting in the chair next to me. Carla? She hasn't called in weeks. I heard she's busy, I lied. I didn't want to tell her the truth. The truth was that Carla was currently working double shifts at a diner in Reno, trying to pay off the legal fees for her accessory charges. She had avoided jail, but she hadn't avoided the consequences. She was living in a studio apartment with 2 roommates, and her credit score was lower than the temperature in Alaska. My phone buzzed. It was an alert from the bank. Monthly revenue report, record high. Brad's Maserati lifestyle had been auctioned off last week. The proceeds went to pay back the contractors he had scammed. Justice was slow, but it was thorough. She was a fool to leave you, David, Martha said, looking out at the lake. You were the only steady thing in her life. I was too safe, I said, smiling as I took a bite of the cookie. Safety is underrated, Martha chuckled. Especially when the storm comes. I looked at the water. The storm had passed. The house was standing. The bank was thriving. I wasn't just a paper pusher. I wasn't just a junior associate. I was the anchor. And while the ships that chased the wind had crashed against the rocks, I was still here. Enjoying the view.